7 years ago, Emma was ousted from the company she'd co-founded by her own fiancé, Leo. The breakup had been brutal, but Emma had picked up the pieces and moved on. Now, she was back in town for the launch of her new business, and she had a surprise for Leo. But he would never have guessed what it was. Emma had always been ambitious. While other girls her age were more concerned about finding a boyfriend than making a difference in the world, she'd been devising business plans and preparing to take over her father's construction company one day. When she met the charming and handsome Leo, who was also an ambitious entrepreneur, they quickly became business partners as well as lovers. Together, they'd accomplished so much. They'd grown his small import business into a multi-million-dollar enterprise and were considered one of the most successful couples in town. But Leo had a dark side that Emma had ignored. While in public, he was the perfect gentleman. Behind closed doors, he was abusive. She kept hoping that he'd change, but he never did. Eventually, she had enough and broke off their engagement. But instead of leaving her alone, Leo used his influence and power to make her life hell. He spread nasty rumors about her, hired people to spy on her, and even showed up at her house in the middle of the night just to scare her. Finally, Emma had had enough. She took Leo to court, and after a long and messy legal battle, she got sole ownership of the business. It hadn't been easy. The experience had left her drained, but she knew that she'd made the right decision. Now, 7 years later, Emma was back in town to launch her new business, a chain of organic supermarkets. She'd chosen this town because it was the headquarters of her ex-fiancé's business empire. She couldn't wait to show him what she'd become. The day before the big event, she arrived at the luxurious hotel where she'd be staying during her visit. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from Leo. "Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow," it read. Below that, there was a winking emoji. She almost felt like vomiting. What did he think she was going to do? Forgive him? No way. Their meeting was purely professional, nothing more. She didn't bother replying. Instead, she went out to check the venue for the next day's event. As she entered the grand ballroom, she noticed a familiar figure standing by the window. Tall, handsome, with tousled brown hair and piercing blue eyes. It was him. All those years had only made him more attractive. Time had been kind to him, but he'd aged like fine wine. He turned around and saw her. His face broke into a wide smile. "Emma, is that really you?" he exclaimed, rushing towards her. Before she could respond, he pulled her into a tight embrace. It was so unexpected that she froze. His touch still sent shivers down her spine. When they finally broke apart, she crossed her arms. "What are you doing here?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I own this hotel," he said with a shrug. "It's one of my properties. I thought you knew. I didn't know you owned this place," she replied, trying to hide the surprise in her voice. She'd had no idea that Leo had become such a successful property tycoon. "So, how have you been?" he asked, suddenly awkward. "I've been great," she lied smoothly. "My new business is taking off, and I'm excited to share it with everyone, especially you." She could see the surprise in his eyes. Despite everything that had happened between them, he still had a kind heart. "I can't wait to hear all about it," he said with a smile. "But now tell me what brings you back to this town after all this time." "I'm here to stay," she said quietly. The next day, Emma stood on the podium addressing the crowd at the launch of her new business. Beside her stood Mayor Thompson, a portly man with a handlebar mustache, who seemed to be enjoying the attention. Behind him, a banner proclaimed, "Healthy food for a healthy town." Emma had chosen this location not just because it was close to her ex's business, but because it was a food desert with limited access to fresh produce. She wanted to make a difference. As she spoke, she saw Leo in the audience, his expression unreadable. Was he surprised by her return, or was he furious? She couldn't tell, but she didn't care. She was here to stay, and she wasn't going anywhere. Later that evening, she attended the grand opening of the supermarket, which was buzzing with customers. As she walked through the aisles, she saw families buying fresh produce, organic meats, and healthy snacks. It was everything she'd hoped for. Suddenly, she heard a chuckle. Well, if it isn't the famous Emma." She turned to see Leo approaching her, a smirk on his face. "You look surprised. Did you think I wouldn't show up?" "I didn't think you'd care," she replied, trying to keep her tone even. "Of course I care," he said, stepping closer. "I haven't seen you in years. I couldn't resist coming to see what you've become." "I'm doing well," she said, trying not to let her annoyance show. "And what brings you back to this town?" he asked, his voice low. "I told you, I'm here to stay," she replied, meeting his gaze. "Oh really?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "What makes you think you can compete with me here?" "I don't compete with you," she said, crossing her arms. "We're not partners anymore." "That doesn't mean you can't try to destroy me," he said with a sneer. "You're the one who destroyed our business," she snapped back. "Don't you think I know that?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. "You think I haven't spent the last 7 years planning my revenge? You're going to pay for what you did." "Emma," he leaned in close, his hot breath on her neck. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." Then he straightened up and walked away, leaving her trembling with anger and fear. Did Leo really hate her that much? Was he capable of destroying her new business? And what was he planning? These questions kept her up at night, but she refused to let it show. In the following weeks, Leo made Emma's life hell. He spread rumors about her business, hired people to spy on her, and even threatened her employees. But Emma was determined not to let him win. She worked harder than ever, pouring all her energy into her business. She knew that if she could succeed, she would prove to Leo that he wasn't strong enough to defeat her. Then, just as she was starting to think she might actually succeed, disaster struck. One evening, she received a phone call. Her sister, Anna, was in tears. "Emma, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "The twins? They're gone." Emma rushed home and found her house empty. The kids were gone. Where could they be? And then she saw a note on the table. "I'm sorry, Emma, but I can't let you raise these children. They're coming with me. Signed, Leo." How could he have taken her kids? Emma immediately called the police, but they said there was nothing they could do. Leo had full custody. Emma was devastated. She'd lost everything. Her business, her house, her kids. What was she even fighting for? As she sank to the floor, defeated, she heard a familiar voice. "Emma, are you okay?" She looked up to see Leo standing over her, his face etched with concern. "Where are the kids?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Why did you take them? You know I would never hurt them," he said softly. "I just wanted to be with them. I missed them so much." "You could have asked," she whispered. "I'm sorry, Emma," he said, his voice cracking. "I've been so angry with you for so long that I forgot what it was like to be with you, to be with us." He reached out to touch her, but she flinched away. "I still hate you," she whispered. "No, you don't," he said, shaking his head. "You don't even know me anymore. Do you want to know the truth?" she asked. He nodded, his eyes searching hers. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "I never stopped loving you either." They embraced, tears streaming down their faces. It was the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, one filled with hope and happiness.